Welcome to the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a period of European history, which most historians agreed was between 1350 and 1650. The word Renaissance was invented by some French dudes because it's a French word meaning rebirth. It was rebirthing mankind's desire to seek knowledge and beauty after the intellectual darkness that the Middle Ages had caused. During this time period, people broke from the bonds of church power, and faith weakened, unless people were counting on the church. One of the greatest causes of the Renaissance was the Great Plague. It was an epidemic disease of the mid-1300s, which also weakened many people's faith. It developed humanism and gave people a live-for-today attitude and believed that man is the measure of all things. Eventually, the contagious disease was spreading to everyone, and everyone around you was dying, and about 1/3 to 1/2 of the population was wiped out by this disease. Sounds pretty depressing to me. Occasionally there was that one guy who didn't get it, but the people didn't really like that one guy that much. The plague also damaged the feudal system. Then there was increased trade and commerce, which created a new merchant class, middle class, above the common laborers but still below the nobles. It also created individualism. Then there was the printing press, invented by this guy, Johann Gutenberg. The printing press led to rapid spread of literacy and ideas, further weakening the monopoly of power held by the Catholic Church. It also led to new interpretations of the Bible, which in turn created new non-Catholic Christian churches. This also helped people be able to read and write in their very own language. Shock! They also took a lot of art and literature things from the Greeks and Romans, like painting naked people. Artists used perspective to help them paint. Like this guy, for example, Jan van Eyck, a Flemish artist who's given credit for inventing oil paintings, like this. This is probably one of his more famous paintings. Then there's this guy, Botticelli, an Italian artist who concerned himself with painting the images from Greek and Roman mythology. He's the one who painted the naked people. Then there's Michelangelo. No, not the Ninja Turtle. This guy. He was most famous on his work of the statue David, the Pieta, and this. That's right, that's a ceiling, a giant ceiling of a giant, beautiful church that he spent his entire time on his back painting. So next time your parents complain about back pain, tell them about Michelangelo. Then there's Leonardo da Vinci. He's pretty famous, if you've ever seen Mr. Peabody and Sherman, but he's based off that guy, but he's a genius. He painted the Mona Lisa and was famous for many science experiments that he had caused and inventions that he had. Then there's Raphael. No, what is with you guys and Ninja Turtles? This guy was famous for his paintings and linked Christian ideas with the wisdom of ancient Greece and Rome. He also liked to paint angel babies. Then there's some of the scientific revolution people, like this guy, Nicholas Copernicus, who published on the revolution of the celestial spheres. Then there's Galileo, who created a telescope to see not strong enough to absorb the orbit of Venus and see the sunspots, Jupiter's moons, Saturn's rings, and craters and mountains on the moon. Nicholas Copernicus' book also stated his belief in sun-centered theory. Then there's Johann Kepler, proving that the orbit of the planets is an oval in shape. Then there's Andreas Vesalius, who published a book about human anatomy. He would often steal bodies from graveyards in order to do so, to study them. Then there's Francis Bacon. He published Novum Organum, establishing the scientific method, observation, experimentation, and hypothesis. Then there's Robert Hooke, an Englishman who developed the compound microscope. Then there's Isaac Newton, who I'm sure you guys have all heard about, the crazy apple guy. So pretty much this is a bunch of bearded guys with the exception of Robert, Isaac, and Copernicus, who like space, dead people, and science. Many things I could have talked about, like some of the inspiring writers. I talked a lot about art, but I didn't really talk about the literature, even though I mentioned both. Both were very important. Some of the more famous people included Dante Alighieri, Miguel Cervantes, Niccolo Machiavelli, and William Shakespeare. There's so much more that I could have said about the Renaissance, but for now it is to be continued. Thank you guys so much for watching.